Hi, what's Jable and Jables? Is my mic too, there's no reverb on. Good. Um, I'm gonna tell you about my summer. The first thing I did was go on a trip to Europe. It was kind of fun, but I felt restrained by my parents. They don't like to walk very much, and a lot of the towns in Europe require a lot of walking. So their values were a little bit incongruous with the nature of travel in Europe. However, we did still see a lot. And I took my own time to go out and explore for myself. So I'm satisfied with what I saw throughout the trip. I went to London in England. Um, Excuse me while I try to remember. It's a little bit hard for me to focus while playing the video game. Um, but then we went to the Czech Republic, Prague. Some beautiful castles there. Then I visited some relatives in Minsk, Belarus, uh, where we took a short detour into Moscow, because that Russian town is a very, very pretty place with a lot of history, lots of cool stuff. I went into the Kremlin and saw a lot of old old items in general from various countries, not just Russian items. Lots of gold, lots of golden things there. Um, but that's not to detract from the beauty of all the other places. Let me tell you a little bit about them. Um, First, in London, there's a lot of history preserved there. And I think that is heavily. Um, oh, got an energy drink. Very cool. I've got a med kit. That's alright. I could use a little bit more money for this chest. I think that London owes a great deal to not being bombed by Germany. So I'm glad that happened. I'm glad that didn't happen during World War II. So I went to all the things you would expect. I checked out all the bridges. I walked along the river, the Thames. I loved it. Most of the days weren't too hot. It's not a extremely bustling metropolis like a city, like with high rises everywhere, um, which is fine. There's a lot of old mixed in with the new. There's some nice towers. They they exist, of course, but it reminded me a little bit of Japan. My trip to Japan, um, in Tokyo, where you'll find very nice new buildings surrounded by just beautiful old monuments. In Tokyo, those would be shrines. In England, I found churches in the middle of their, I want to say downtown, probably not the downtown, but their business district, I want to say. I'm missing the teleporter here. It's 5 minutes in, so I need to activate it. Let's get to that. Here it is. Oh, and some chests right next to it. I have all the items I need. Predatory Instincts is a great addition. Prague. Um, Prague is great. Prague is a good city. Um, it's good for a couple days, definitely. Um, my favorite part of the town was definitely the West End, with a lot of historical castles and oh, picking up the damage here with a little bit more fire rate, as you can see. Um, but the old castles are the highlight. That's the biggest thing you'll see in the city. There are a few nice local cuisines, but I don't think I would dedicate too much time to it if I were to go there. If I were to go on a trip to Europe again, for example. Because it's just not a very large town. Getting close here on this boss. I'm going to focus all my energy on it. Alright. And the teleporter is ready for me to go through. These enemies will provide a lot of experience for its damage now. So I'll take them out first. And that's all of them. Good work. Made short work of them all. This is not my favorite stage, but we'll keep moving. So I would say on the eastern side of the city of Prague, there isn't as much to see. There's a huge radio tower um, that I walked up to, and there were some very nice hills on the way there that reminded me a little bit of San Francisco. Um, but it doesn't. The buildings around it don't quite look like San Francisco. I think the biggest thing was more the thing that reminded me most of San Francisco was that the cars were parked very, very close to each other on the hills. You know, in the way that San Francisco is very, very densely parked. And there was another little hike to a very similar. I don't think it was a television tower. I think it's just a old old tower in general, with a great viewpoint that I really enjoyed on the West End anyway. So the West End is definitely a lot more of a highlight, in my opinion. I don't want to sound like I'm talking negatively of Prague, but we definitely spent a little bit too much time there compared to a place with so much more to offer like London. Minsk is a similar city to Prague, I would say, in that regard, that it doesn't really warrant too much of your time unless you, like me, have relatives there, or you can read Russian. Um, technically, the local language is Belarusian, but I would say it's very, very, very passable to just have Russian, and you'll be able to understand most things in the area. You'll be able to talk to people in Russian as well. I would say it's way more widely used than Belarusian, actually. I'm not sure if that goes for the rest of Belarus, but certainly for Minsk. And a lot of Minsk's history, a lot of the population, and exciting things come from the USSR era. Um, there was a little parade commemorating World War II. That's very common. There are a lot of the holidays and festivities revolve around the the tragic losses they had in World War II. I think that about concludes what I want to say about Europe. I talked about each town a little bit. It was overall enjoyable. It was worth going. So now that I'm back, I've done a couple little things over the summer. Um, I've just gone to two camps. Uh, they're completely different camps, which is why I mentioned them. I really shouldn't still be on stage 2 right now, so I'm gonna go move back and get into the teleporter. I've essentially explored the whole map, and I could have probably even started it earlier, like when I first saw the teleporter. We'll uh, we'll grab this chest here. Oh, it was worth it. There's a brooch in it, which tends to give me some very nice health. Very much needed whenever I'm fighting. Alright, let's get to it. Two completely different camps. The first was a traditional camp in a tent style of camp. I actually didn't camp in a tent. That was my family. I did come along for a day, though, to enjoy the lake, do some swimming. Have some traditional camp cuisine. Grill some hot dogs. Some chili beans. Toast some marshmallows. So, it was a relaxing time. More recently, I went to Asthma Camp. Asthma Camp is something that I volunteer in every year. I used to go to it as a camper. I no longer do because I'm not allowed. I'm 18. So I just give back to the community by serving as a counselor for the kids who go to Asthma Camp. And Asthma Camp, literally, is just a summer camp for kids that have asthma and can't normally go to summer camp. If you need a description. Because I know it's definitely not common. Asthma Camp is held in cabins, so it's not a traditional outdoor style camping experience. You're also with complete strangers, not really your family. But the kids enjoy somewhat similar things. It's just a way for them to be active in a safe environment where they don't have to battle with their asthma. Or if they do battle with their asthma, we can easily treat it. We also teach them how to prevent it and how to be active and live a normal lifestyle without worrying about asthma throughout daily life. So we teach them the causes, the triggers of asthma, um, what to do if you have an asthma attack. They take their inhaler, of course. That's the rescue medication. Could use some items on the stage here. I think I could use some damage items, especially. Uh-oh, I didn't grab that. That was a nice boost. Lots of experience containers. Not much of an item stage here. Roll for a green item, and it's a red. Double the strength of healing. I do believe I have a couple healing items. I have a leeching seed, which is great. That plays very well with that. It's like I got a second leeching seed. And maybe, because I can't defeat a lot of these enemies very quickly, I think I will just go on and look for more items. Teddy bear, that's great. Personal shield. Lots of health and shield items here. Getting barriers. All kinds of great things, but not much on the offensive side. I must say, my time at Asthma Camp this year, geez, this is a very rough situation. I just described the Asthma Camp experience this year with what I just said. It was weaker than the rest of the experiences I had. It was tougher to deal with the children as the adult, being a counselor, for a number of reasons. Some of them were situational and completely only related to this year. It's always kind of tough to have to deal with the children. But there were some special circumstances regarding this year that made it a little bit tougher. To start off, the first day, when you arrive at the community center where we leave for the camp in a bus, excuse me, I'm going to be very, very stuttery for a second here because I'm just trying to fend off this horde of enemies. The first day, I was scheduled to have 2 other people in my cabin with me. Excuse me, 2 other counselors that weren't actually present at the camp. So, on the camp roster, I thought it would be me, one counselor, then another counselor, and then 2 what we call junior counselors, who are not quite adults yet, but are volunteering as counselors, essentially. The only thing they do differently is that, well, they assist us. They have to be with us, with the adult counselors, because they're not adults themselves and they can't accompany the children on their own. Therefore, they act like assistants. They can't take the kids anywhere, but they essentially have the same role. So, in a cabin of 8 children, I was the only counselor, and I only had 1 junior counselor. Which is severely understaffed for that amount of kids. One adult can watch 8 children. That's not a problem. But keep in mind that I was doing this on my own at all times for 4 days in a row. I essentially, because I was the only actual counselor, that meant I had to be with the children at all times. And I ended up having to use my junior counselor friend very liberally. He's a great guy. Fortunately, he was really good with the kids. He was a lot stricter than me. The kids described me literally as chill. Their own words. And I will admit I could have been a little bit harder on them, but I didn't want to ruin like any of the enjoyment of camp. So I tried not to interfere with what they were doing as much as possible. Laissez-faire. Although some very strict discipline would have really, really improved the experience for the counselors. Me, of course. That said, the children were the children I was assigned to were a very mixed bag. And in a lot of ways, not great. Wow, I can't even escape this guy. Can I leave? I had 2 or 3 kids who were really smart, logical, didn't try to get in my way a lot of the time. A couple, 2 or 3, that were mixed based on how the others were doing. Sometimes kids like to follow what other people are doing and just be loud whenever others are loud. That's what I found quite frequently. So these bad kids that I'm about to tell you about were certainly the enablers of the chaos resulting from all of the others as well. Now these other 2 or 3, I had 8 in total. I will definitely say there were 3 that I considered very, very bad. Either making threats to each other constantly, one of which definitely had or was exposed to domestic violence issues at home, because I could tell because his brother was also at camp and they would constantly hit each other, just be rude to each other in general, verbally. So also physically. Um, and they wouldn't just do it to themselves, to each other. It would be towards. They would have outbursts at other children as well. And these are over minor things. For example, someone stole someone's item, or sorry, someone stole this child's item at the pool. That warrants to him hitting the other children who stole his item or might have pushed him. Excuse me. Or otherwise wronged him. What I mean to say is that he escalated very minor disagreements into very major problems for the counselors, especially me, to deal with. My healing items are really saving me right now. So these three kids ended up creating a constant positive feedback loop of screaming, threats, punching. The physical part probably being more so when I wasn't looking, because it's just a radar scanner. Because most of the fighting between my cabin mates ended up happening when I wasn't looking. When they went to go do a group activity and I wasn't supervising them, I was maybe supervising a different group activity. And someone else, some other counselor, let me know something had happened after the fact. The other thing is that alone I wasn't able to be stern with these kids. Usually there would be harsher consequences for being so rude and so frequently. The camp director had to come into our cabin thanks to someone else calling in about my own kids and threatened to remove the violent kid who was attacking people from camp. And we could have let him know about the issue much earlier if I had had another counselor with me. Or maybe even prevented that scene from even happening in the first place. If, again, I had another counselor. Because that person could have walked down and let camp staff know about it. Instead, that didn't happen. Because I had to be with the kids at all times. I couldn't ask someone to go grab help with anything. I had to be with the kids at all times. So the only reasonable option for me at that point, outside of potentially using the radio, which I really didn't use much, to let others know, because I mean they have their own kids to worry about. They can help me sometimes, but not always. That's why we have two counselors in a cabin generally together in the first place, so we can work together. It doesn't work as well when you try to call some other person's counselor or some other cabin's counselor. Wow. There are a lot of enemies on right now. I still have very few damage accessories. This could be a losing game. All in all, that camp went quite horribly because of being understaffed. It wasn't all bad. I tried to make the best of it, do some fun things, take some hikes. Enjoy swimming. Enjoy the food. The food there is always great. Wow. This is hectic. And although it wasn't such an amazing time overall, I do feel good that I repaid some dues by both volunteering, by giving back to the camp I went to as a kid, feeling the pain that I probably inflicted upon previous counselors. Probably amplified by 10, though. Giving back to underserved communities. These are usually quite poor families from South Sacramento area. Oh boy. This is too much. We're weighting them down, but there is quite a horde behind me. I mustn't forget that I have triple jump right now. That might be what saves me, since these brass contraptions are hard to hit a flying target. It might be nice to take out the import on me before I die here. There's an explosion. And my health is recharging. Fighting the weaker monsters is going to be a key right now, because setting off chain reactions seems to play best to my forte here. So the moral of Asthma Camp this year was, it's not worth it to watch 8 children for 4 days for free, unless you get something real good out of it. The camp is quite good. It wasn't as good as the kids were bad. Usually is. But it's not nice to be mean to Asthma Camp, so. I won't say much about it. I started learning a little Japanese this summer as well. I'm in the process of memorizing kanji, which are essentially Chinese characters transported into Japan and used as their writing system. So I've been associating how they look with how they're read. And I've learned about 80 so far. I'm using a service called Wanikani, which is a spaced repetition system. It's a bit like using flashcards, but it keeps you accountable by telling you when to use the flashcards. We're almost there. We're going to see if the rest of the items on the stage can help bring me back to a good state where I can defeat the enemies on the next stage more effectively. Only 1,500 health left over here. We'll be done. All right. What have we got? We've got a 4th jump. That is quite useless to me. Get the bugle. Then we'll go for the underground chest. Right on, just enough money. And a very nice item. There's a med kit. Unnecessary. I'm looking for damage items in general. Why didn't I open that? I have great damage when I defeat enemies, but I can't really get them to that point right now, so the damage is absolutely key right now. Doesn't look like there's a chest up here, so we're gonna gamble with the chance shrine. Decent item, but not a damage item. So I'll just retreat to the next stage and hope for the best. Let me show you my flashcards. Stop the game real quick. I have, again, probably about 80 of these. That's 4. That's fire. Just various words. They're random. Random kanji. Mostly based on how simple they are to start off right now. Because they can get very complex. You have kanji that are essentially made up of other kanji, eventually. Of multiple of each. Not of each, but made up of multiple different ones. That could be many of them. But they still have to fit in the same little box. Or essentially the same amount of handwriting space. So each one gets shrunken down and condensed into that little box, that little area that you write in. Think of it as like when you write the letter H, that takes up a certain amount of space, right? Well, what if you had to write 4 H's in that space? You have some tiny H's, and the kanji gets harder to read and more complex in that way. But it's fun. I just think it's cool. I just think it's cool. And that's why I do it. That about ends what I think I've been doing this summer. Other than me going to community college and writing essays. Because that's something that colleges want you to do. So, let's look at the gameplay now. I surprisingly haven't lost any of my FPS experience. Well, I guess a little bit. I definitely can't play Counter-Strike as proficiently as before. It also doesn't help that my... Oh, man. This is getting rough. I'm being out-damaged by the enemies. I haven't progressed as much as them. I seriously can't find any items around. Maybe I'm just passing them. Or I'm blind, but... I should have more, I think. I think I'll start off the teleporter as soon as I can. And it was up there, up on the hill where I just was. I have good damage on hit now. Look at this. Because I have rockets flying out of me. I think I have a little bit better chance to take it on now. But my aim largely hasn't seemed to have decayed, which is kind of surprising for me. Oh boy, this is going to be a tough one. I'm still able to aim and shoot quite well. But I haven't been playing anything competitive lately. And I've just in general been playing less games. I haven't been doing as much streaming, despite the fact that I have such nice equipment now, or making videos. What's this humming noise? I'm seriously unsure. It's coming from the left now. If it's just the vagrants, then that's very annoying, and I never noticed that before. Oh boy. Ooh, good game. That was a losing battle. You could see it on the last stage. On this one, definitely wasn't taking care of the boss as much as I should have been. And I think it owes to those I think I owe it to those 3 feathers that I got. Thanks for watching. I don't really have anything else to say. That's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed my description of my own summer.